Selena is actually very special because she's serving as a very specific niche, and I want her to tell us more about who she is, what she does, and who those people are.
Thank you for having me. It's very nice to meet you all. So let me talk a little bit about my niche. I created my company, Madrina Consulting, uh, because I wanted to do something different. And my name, Madrina, in the Hispanic culture is a very special person. It's a woman who, is your go-to, your advice giver, even outside your mothers and your aunts. It's those women who lived in the community that were connected, right? And so when I went into business for myself, I really saw a need for representation of Latina entrepreneurs. Now, there are people in those spaces or other women of color entrepreneurs. But what you'll find is there are a lot of great programs out there, accelerator programs, support programs. But for some of those to apply for them, or even like the grants or the mentorships, you have to have 3 to 5 years in business already. You had to have made $250,000 in revenue. And there's a lot of us that are just starting out. We're lucky if we made $5,000 last year, right? So I think that that's a space, those of us that are beginning or very early in our entrepreneurial journey, that we still need that support that perhaps we can't access for various, reasons or requirements in other spaces. So I'm really looking at those new and want to be entrepreneurs, Latina and other women of color entrepreneurs, because I think it's really important that we're the fastest growing market, right? In terms of entrepreneurship, Latinas, we're one of the biggest growers of having new businesses, especially over COVID. And so we really need to be supported. And so that's where I'm really looking to put that together. Mhm.
Very cool, very cool. One of the things we were having a conversation earlier, and one of the things that you mentioned, actually, kind of you brought up growing up as a Latina woman, you woman, and all of that. Like you were giving us three ways that we can be confident in having difficult conversations. But before we go there, actually, I want you
Okay.
to tell us a story on how you experienced um why and why this is important. Like, why do we need to be more confident in having difficult conversations as women, and for those who are of Latina and Hispanic descent,
Mhm.
for them too, culturally, right?
Right, right. So, when you're in a position of power or a position of leadership, it doesn't matter whether you're the CEO or maybe you're just the store manager, whatever it happens to be, right? Maybe you're the eldest child in your family, whatever that happens to be for you. It's really important to understand how to have hard conversations because they will come up. Just no doubt about it, they will come up. You can be the most progressive employer, you can be the most open and progressive and empathetic person, and you will still have to have difficult conversations. It's going to happen. We're human. And uh, it's really easy to avoid them, but it makes your life a lot harder. And
Right.
so you really have to become comfortable doing that. So, as I have been saying before, I grew up in a household that was to me very progressive, but I absolutely learned not to speak until I was spoken to. I absolutely learned that I should not agitate the situation. Or, like I had said before, that if my grandmother or my mother were having somebody important, the insurance man used to come door to door to collect payments. The various salesmen or the plumbers, they sat in the kitchen and they talked and they negotiated, and we weren't allowed in the kitchen. We had to wait at the door to be acknowledged, and then we were allowed to say something. It didn't matter what we wanted, we had to wait. And that, in one way, taught me respect. And that's why I was really proud of that. But at the same time, I realized it taught me not to say anything, not to speak in a group of people. Even if I had something important to say, I shouldn't speak. It wasn't my turn. I wasn't acknowledged. And that is not how you approach a difficult conversation, because those conversations have to happen even when you don't want to do it, even when nobody wants to hear you. You have to be able to do those things. So I'll give you an example. I was a manager in a library. I had a long career as a librarian, and people think, oh, it's so easy. You read books all day, and that's not what happens. I've had to have really difficult conversations with, say, I had a difficult conversation with a parent who left their child
Oh,
and really had to explain why I had to take the actions I did for the safety of their child,
oh,
even though I had to call the police. So the child had been
right.
left for like an hour after we
Mhm.
closed.
Right.
But for their own safety, I had to call them. And I don't like doing that. I mean, that was, I don't just call the police willy nilly, but I had to really explain this is really for your safety. And this woman was very, very upset with me. And it was very difficult to not cry, not to
Right.
turn bright red. But, those things, those sorts of things happen. You're going to have to do things that you don't want to do. And so you have to be able to explain yourself. So, one thing I always tell people that when you have these difficult conversations, you have to really learn to manage your emotions, right? And so I would joke that I would always wear my hair down at work because when it happened, my ears would turn bright red and I didn't want anybody to see, right? And so, you never saw me with my hair up at work. And I was told I had a very calm face, which I practiced and practiced that but my ears are bright red because I had to really control my emotional response to people being mad at me,
Right.
and that was outside of the whole situation. It wasn't even about the situation. It's like somebody was mad at me. How
Mhm.
do I handle that? So, so really managing your emotions
Mhm.
and having, you have to have good knowledge
Right.
about what's happening. You know, if you have time to prepare for a conversation, then you need to prepare for that conversation so you know what you're talking about because you will get pushback from whatever you're talking about. Mhm.
So let's go ahead and tell us three tips on how to feel confident in having these hard conversations.
Okay. So I feel like I have to always go back to my notes.
You're fine.
Sorry. So one thing I really think is important is that you find community. And I mean that in that uh, you need to find someone, whether it's a best friend, it's a colleague, it's a stranger who's in the same area that you're in, whether it's geographical or business or whatnot, that you can talk to. It could
Right.
be a group of people that you can talk to because you need to bounce ideas off of people, especially if you have time to prepare for a difficult conversation, or you need to be able to talk to somebody. It might even be your therapist, quite honestly, depending on how hard it is. You need to be able to get that off of your chest and debrief with somebody. Like, what did I do? How do I improve it? What went wrong? What went really, really well? And
Mhm.
then, write those things down and remember it. And that's where community really comes in because you need to have that support.
Right.
Being a boss or a CEO or the manager, it's lonely. It's lonely at the top. You want to be friends with your employees, your staff, but at the same time you have to have that bit of a level of separation in order to do the work that you have to do. So finding community is really, really important so that you feel supported by somebody. Because if you have a difficult conversation with an employee, they're not going to turn around. Well, hopefully they will, but chances are they're not going to turn around and say, thank you so much. You did a really great job. I hope we could do this again. They're not going to do that, right? So you need a community. Um, the other thing I think you need to do is develop a personal accountability for yourself. And that means you know, it's easy to say, we do this every January, right? I'm going to join the gym and I'm going to go to the gym. And it's very easy by February to cancel your gym membership, right? You're not being accountable to yourself. So whatever it happens to be, particularly for something that's hard, when you're going to have a difficult conversation, like if say a volunteer, we'll switch it up. Say a volunteer is doing something that is just really not good in your organization and you need to talk to them, you research what's happening, you have your notes. It's really easy to not do it.
Right.
And so you have to have accountability to yourself to start. You have to say, this is what I'm going to do. I'm setting this time. I'm going to do this. Because if you don't have that accountability, ignoring a problem makes things worse. It doesn't make it go away.
Right.
Right. And so, and then on the flip side of that, let's say you have a conversation with an employee and you say, okay, this is the issue. This is the outcome we're hoping for. How can you reach that outcome and how can I help you with that outcome? And then let's say you then make a plan. okay, these are the steps we're going to take. If you don't follow up with those steps, it's the same thing as not having a conversation,
Right.
right? And the rest of your employees will see, well, you didn't do nothing about it. So why should I care? Why
Mm,
should I try to be better? So you have to have that accountability in order to ensure trust amongst your team, and and to know that people will trust you to do what you're going to do, what you say you're going to do.
right.
Um, the last thing really is using your voice. And you would think that by this time, if you're having these conversations, if you're being accountable to yourself, that you're using your voice. Well, not necessarily. If you grew up much like I did, where you were respectful and you honored people and you didn't interrupt and you didn't say anything, um, recognize that you have to use that voice. You have to get comfortable, speaking your mind. I was once in a circle. Unfortunately, there was an emergency at an organization I was at. A car went through a window, and, and all these big, burly firefighters and policemen and window construction guys, the boarding up guys, were in a circle discussing what was happening. And I stood there, I walked up and I stood there for a second, and nobody looked at me. And I was like, guys, I'm the director. Talk to me. Tell me what happened. Now, if I would have said that in my grandmother's kitchen, I would have had to pick up rice off the floor as a punishment, right? But in that situation, I had to be comfortable as a much shorter person, the only brown person, and a woman in a group of men. I had to be comfortable to say, I'm the one you have to talk to. I'm the one you have to answer to. This is my building. Tell me what happened. And that was terrifying. But it's necessary to be able to do those things, because you will run into people, you will have to talk to people that you're used, particularly those of us that grew up in different cultural circumstances, that you're used to not butting up against. And you have to be able to be comfortable with that. You have to be able to say, I need information. I am responsible, or I want to do what's best for you. But you have to be able to articulate that. So you really have to learn to use your voice to talk about what's important. And then if you do that, chances are you'll be able to avoid difficult conversations in the future because you've already set yourself up. You're accountable, you're verbal with people, and you're honest with people. And then it won't be so hard to do those conversations later.
That would be that's a pretty great breakdown when it comes to what you need to do, especially with the experience in the background and what taught you in the beginning stages of your
Mm-hmm.
life. But you just mentioned to us about your new group. We'd love to go ahead and get everybody to get into your space so in that way they can learn from you. Do you currently have ways to find how they can find you aside from the Facebook group?
So the Facebook group, I have my business page, which is Madrina Consulting, but my Facebook group is called Comadre Cafe. And comadre, if you're not familiar with the word, is like your co-mother, your girlfriend mother, right? These are the women that are your buddies, your sisters, your aunts that are there to help you. And so I'm developing the space for my business comadres, right? The women I'm going to go to help me out, to hear me out and to see what I want to do. So if you do a search for Comadre Cafe, so it's COMADRE So if you look for that, it's a private Facebook group. This is specifically for Latinas and other women of color. So it's not, specifically Latinas who are wanting to enter into business, become an entrepreneur, or maybe only have a few years, some experience in their journey already. So, and it is free, it is private, and there are some questions to answer. Other than that, you could always look up my business. It's madrinaconsulting.com. There hopefully one day will be a bigger membership on that site, but I do leadership coaching, business coaching, executive coaching, however you want to phrase that, and then do various different types of consulting services for small businesses and nonprofits.
This has been a wonderful eye-opening because as Filipino myself, I grew up that way because we had that Spanish descent. So we did have I understand comadre.
Mm-hmm.
People are using that as madre, but it's
Mm-hmm.
more of sisterly or motherly,
Right.
mother from the
Right.
just like sister from another mother kind of thing.
Right,
But
exactly,
thank you
exactly.
so much, Selena. This has been like a
Thank
really
you.
great topic. And for those who are watching us on the replay or on live, make sure to reach out to Selena. We'll be dropping her links to how you can get a hold of her. And thank you so much, everybody. Have a
Thank
great,
you.
wonderful week.
Bye.
Bye.